chances are you might have heard of OCD before. OCD stands for Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. It is an anxiety disorder, it's a mental illness, and you've probably seen it on social media. So, what exactly is OCD? So, like I said, OCD is an anxiety disorder. It involves compulsions, reassurance, and anxiety, which is the main component of OCD, and it is the thing that drives the person with OCD to do the compulsions, to do the so-called strange behaviors. So I suffer from OCD. I've had it since I was 13, and it's something that's greatly affected my personal life. So in this video, I'm going to break down the basis of OCD, and we're also gonna go in depth. So see this as a documentary about this mental illness that has affected my life so much. So let's begin. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. Let me explain the cycle of OCD for you, how it manifests, how it affects the individual. So the cycle of OCD is you have an anxiety-provoking thought. Okay, let's say it is about your hands not being clean, which is a typical OCD trope, and it's shown a lot in media, like in the movie The Aviator, for example, with Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And let's say you have a thought, oh, what if my hands aren't clean, right? So you get that thought, it causes you anxiety, you can't sit in one place, you can't focus on anything else. That thought keeps reappearing in your mind. So what do? Well, you go to the bathroom, you turn on the tap, you start washing your hands, right? You wash, but then you get another thought. What if they aren't properly clean? What if there are some germs left on there? What if there's some soap left on there? So you keep scrubbing, and what it becomes is you don't really want to keep washing. You don't want to do it, but it's just that the anxiety, the fear, the thought itself of them not being clean, it disturbs your mind so much that you can't stop, right? So you keep washing, and then when your hands are all reddish, when they're all dry, that's only then you feel like they're clean. So the so-called mental, how can I put it, the mental check in an individual with OCD, like when you've done something, you have like a check in your mind, it's done, I did it. But with OCD, that reaction, it comes very difficult, because to simply put it, the gearbox in your brain, if you have OCD, the gearbox in your brain doesn't work correctly. It struggles to automatically switch to the next gear. It's like one of those old cars with the manual gear shift. So you have to basically you have all these thoughts, and you have to like push through and like control yourself and tell yourself, okay, it's over, I did it. So let's say you do the compulsion, okay? You scrub your hands, you wash, and then you feel reassurance. The feeling of anxiety is gone. Okay, it's gone, but it's temporarily gone. It's not gone forever. The anxiety is gone, you feel a sense of reassurance, and you move on with your day, right? But then, let's say you touch something with your hands. Let's say you touch the table, and there were some breadcrumbs on the table. And you lift up your hand, you see the breadcrumbs, and now you feel like your hand is contaminated. You have to wash it. So you go back and you wash it again. So this becomes a cycle of obsession. Okay, this is what I call a compulsive, this is a compulsive behavior in general. Okay, another example of a compulsive behavior, and you might have seen this in media too, in movies for example, is checking the door very often. So let's say you go over, you check the door, you're like, all right, it's locked. But then you get a thought. What if it's not locked? You ignore that thought, right? You try to move on because you remember you locked the door. But the thought reappears in your mind again. What if you didn't lock the door? What if because of you, someone breaks into your house? What if they steal all your valuables? What if they hurt you or your family? And you get anxiety once again. You have to go, you check the door. And you might even get the urge to check it again just to be sure, just in case. And that's why OCD is often referred to as the doubting disorder. Constant doubt, doubting yourself, always feeling like something is wrong, like something is off, like a missing puzzle piece. So, what is the treatment for OCD? How can you treat this mental disorder? Well, the most common form of treatment is cognitive behavioral therapy, which involves exposing you to your OCD fears. So let's say if your OCD compulsion, your OCD fear is your hands, like what if your hands are dirty, right? So then what you do is, and you have to do this with a specialist, preferably, right? You typically you do this with a specialist, with an expert. So what they do is they make you touch something dirty, right? And then uh, you have to not wash your hands for a certain amount of time, right? And let's say only after an hour you can go and wash your hands. And what this does is that it teaches your brain to push through the anxiety, to not respond, to not give in to these obsessions. And basically, you're training your brain like you would train a muscle. That's what's happening here. It is cognitive. It is cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitive reevaluation, if you might call it that. So there's also, you know, the medical aspect, like the medicine that you can take. And the medicine, it doesn't help with all. It may not completely help with the disorder. It doesn't help all individuals. But the medicine that I know of is you have, you know, the anxiety, the medicine used for anxiety, right? Because anxiety, like I said, it is the what drives the OCD victim. Now I want to tell you my own personal story. How did this mental illness affect me? When did it start? So it started when I was 13 years old. Okay, I had turned 13 and I developed this strange obsession with numbers. So at the time, I used to exercise a lot. I used to do calisthenics, gymnastics, and whenever I would do my workout, let's say I was about to do 20 push-ups, okay? So I'd go, you know, I'd do my push-ups, I'd count 20, and then a thought would appear in my mind. What if that wasn't 20? What if? What if that was 18 or 17? And then what I did was that I would mentally, in my brain, in my mind, I would go back and I would obsess and think whether or not that was actually 20. And that may not sound that painful or anxiety provoking, but let me tell you, this was a behavior that was involuntary. It was driven by fear, by anxiety, that I hadn't completed my workout correctly, that I hadn't, that I had counted wrong, and it did affect my mind, you know, because I'd always doubt myself, and not just in terms of this specific situation. Also in school and my studies, whenever I would do mathematics or anything involving numbers, I would always have to double check, triple check, you know, check in my mind, did I count that right? I doubt myself, I would hesitate. And you know, it did affect my studies definitely. And from there, I guess you can say that it developed, you know, developed and it worsened over time. Actually, it got worse. And actually, when I was a young teen, when I was a teenager, I didn't seek any form of treatment. As a matter of fact, I would kind of shrug it off and deny it. And I thought that I could deal with it on my own or that it would pass, but it most certainly didn't. So years go on, I started developing more obsessions, more hyperfixations involving checking. Let's say if I was reading a book, I would have to read the chapter over and over to make sure that I had properly processed, that I had properly read all the information. So this constant feeling of doubt followed me into my adulthood, and that right now I'm 20 years old and I'm still struggling. And now it's manifesting more in the form of like thoughts. So there's this variation, this theme, I guess you can say, of OCD called pure OCD, when you do the compulsions in your mind. So an example could be, let's say you have a thought, oh, what if I get robbed when I go outside? And you start imagining it in your head, and you start uh, really trying to stop it from happening, thinking what you would do, thinking about how it probably won't happen. Maybe you even start praying to God, or you avoid going outside because you're scared that it's going to happen. So that's a basic example that I could give you. Um, but like I said, the basis of OCD, what drives the disorder, is the anxiety, it's the doubt, and it is difficult to overcome. And it takes knowing yourself, and it takes not giving in to the behaviors. If you give in to one behavior, it's very easy to, you know, to go down the cycle, and you end up doing all other compulsions and worsening your mental state. Now, I did actually take medicine for my anxiety at a certain period. um, I wouldn't necessarily say that it made my OCD go away completely. Maybe it helped me be more calm, but definitely you should, if you have a mental illness, you should consult a therapist, a specialist, you know, and you should seek treatment, of course, because if you just leave it, if you just let it be, and you don't work on yourself, that is going to affect you in the future, and your mental state is going to worsen. So it's very, very important to acknowledge, to accept that you have this issue, you have these mental issues, and you need to work on it. You need to know yourself, and try to change your life in a way where you will not, suffer as much. Thank you guys for watching. Psychology in general and psychiatry is a field that actually interests me, and I like to do personal reading on this topic because I'm someone who's been affected by it, and I always want to learn more. So if you like this video, please leave a comment and tell me if you want to see more content like this in the future. So thank you for watching. Have a good day, or a good night. Goodbye.